Het-Heru Nefer. This is Kusakma Keperu with another broadcast for you. And today, as always, I've got like an awesome, interesting subject matter for you. And it's the conspiracy theorists and Hotep community. And I'm going to provide a little more insight into exactly what I mean by that. But as you know, if you're coming in, please make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you're new, and share this with friends and family, and let's get this revolution started. And it's always important that we share this information with people of like mind so that they understand what's going on in the world today. All right. So, man, this is a really interesting subject matter, and it's a very important subject matter in terms of what's going on in the world today. Things are changing. People are changing. Situation is changing. The political climate is changing. But what we have to make sure of is that as spiritualists or as magicians, that we stay constant in who we are. And that is the pursuit of turning into spiritual beings. I was going to say being consistent with our spirituality, because that is also important, and consistency is part of Ma'at, living according to truth, justice, and righteousness, and balance, keeping everything balanced in your life. So we have to make sure we're living according to a Ma'at philosophy. And I'll go and expand a little bit more about what that exactly means, living according to Ma'at, because some people interpret it wrong, and the idea that they take away from that is to actually adapt some idioms or some axioms, and then they live by them, principles, and think they are being spiritual or living according to God's word and things of that nature. But that's not exactly correct or right, because we have to understand that we're all living in our own subjective reality, subjective experience. And the rules are different for your friend than they are for you. So basically what that means is that you have a soul contract or a pre-life agreement that you've made before coming to this fourth dimensional realm, and you have to honor that contract, and you have to live that contract out. So your friends, family members, co-workers, they all have their own different soul contract or pre-life agreement that they're living out. So it's very different. And this is where we see things like the Bible gets it wrong, where it talks about these commandments, and these commandments are basically dogma or absolute principles that apply to everyone. And that's not so much so true. So we have to be very cognizant of that the life that we are living is really subjected to us, and there are absolute principles. There is an objective reality that we also have to be aware of. Okay, and that objective reality is part of an agreement, a mass collective agreement that we've all made to come and experience. But don't forget, there are specifics or we should say there's freedom within parameters. All right, even though you have the ability, as I always preach, to change reality, to vibrate to a different frequency where you can manifest things, there are still some things that are absolute and will not change. All right, you're not going to suddenly vibrate to an entirely different universe where their principles are not the same, such as there's no gravity or there's no oxygen. That's not part of the massive collective agreement that you made. And so you're going to have to be confined to this type of space-time continuum. All right. So with that said, what I want to do is I want to cover some things that are really, really important. And I think that it's really misleading the majority of the population into the wrong direction. So, and I want to kind of bring us back. And I-Ching talks about this. It talks about in the hexagram return. And what that means is that you've varied, you've gone off the course, but only by a short distance. And it's very easy for you to return. So that's what I think the masses of the population that's going on right now. We are getting away from the mark, or it's like we're sailing, but we're going in the wrong direction. And if you are not paying attention, if you go off course by just a little bit, over time, you could be totally off course by miles. Okay. So we have to be careful and always make sure that we're focused on the goal and focused on where we're going. And we have a society that we're living in now that refuses to tell the truth, refuses to be held accountable for what's going on in the world, meaning that everyone's living their life, but no one takes responsibility for the wrongs that they do. And this is a problem, and we have to understand that this is what's going on. So what do I mean by that? So let's start with these conspiracy theorists, all right, who can't seem to get anything right, but they think they have the answers, So these people are the most blind people that they are. And I kid you not, because you see these individuals, I'm not going to get into name specifics, but they go on the lecture circuit and they're always talking about these things. And it could be reptiles, it could be ancient aliens, or interdimensional beings, when the truth is right in front of their faces, but they refuse to acknowledge it. Okay. So let me impart to you one idea of what I'm talking about. All right. The truth of the matter is that we know that racism stems from the left brain. It's a product of the left brain and operating out of the lower aspects of the brain, specifically the mammalian and the R complex. Modern psychology refuses to own up to this. All right. They can diagnose all kinds of stuff, schizophrenia, sociopathic behavior. But what they refuse to do is to look at what is the origin of evil. What produces a Hitler? What produces the type of people that can commit mass murder on the planet? And the reason that they refuse to look at this is because most psychologists will lose their academic degrees or their notoriety within the academic circle if they start pointing the fingers as to the origin of all of this. Inevitably, when you talk about things like racism or sexism, you've got to look at the left brain, you've got to look at the R complex, you've got to look at the mammalian brain, and you got to say, hey, you know what? There is a problem here that is systemic. It's widespread among those individuals who are of European descent. And they don't want to take a step in that direction. So therefore, they come up with all this stuff about, and they generalize and they say, oh, you know what? Humanity is evil. Humanity has caused wars on the planet. We have to learn to be more spiritual. No, you have to learn to be more spiritual. People of indigenous origin have never waged wars, have never engaged in racism or sexism. Why don't you state the truth? Why don't you stop lying? There was never a Hitler that sprang out of any indigenous society. Never. Why is that? Because the most indigenous societies are right brain. They're integrated brain thinkers. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if we have all of this genius running around, Elon Musk and Bill Gates, who can create all this technology, artificial intelligence, but yet they can't diagnose the origin of evil on this planet, which comes from the polarizing in the left brain. And then you have these conspiracy theories nuts who come along and they talk about, well, how do they build the pyramids? We don't know. That's a magnificent feat of engineering. And the pyramids are aligned with the constellation of Orion. How do they know this? They knew this because they operate off the right brain. That's how they knew this. No, they must have had help from ancient aliens who taught them how to build the pyramids. What kind of nonsense is this? What kind of nonsense is this? You're scapegoating. You don't want to fess up to what's going on. You don't want to fess up to the fact that indigenous people of color created the world's first civilization. But they don't want to fess up to that. So they create these ideas of aliens coming and teaching the primitive civilizations, how to build pyramids and all this other stuff and creating all these other scientific wonders. They're now admitting that what we thought were primitive civilizations were more advanced than what we realized on an epic scale. So in order to explain this away, instead of diving into the mind and understanding that there's so much there that we don't understand, this is why the ancient Kemetic people said, know thyself. Instead of doing that, they have to do exactly what the left brain always does. What does the left brain do? It always looks at the physical world. Remember, the left brain doesn't look at the metaphysical. The left brain does not internalize. It does not, it's incapable of looking at abstract concepts, such as you are consciousness. You're not the physical body. The left brain thinks you are consciousness. The left brain thinks you're the physical body. The right brain knows you are consciousness. So what does the left brain do? It says, well, there must be aliens that must have come down and interfered in human development. And now they take it things a step further and saying that the reason that we are so savage and we've been genetically engineered to be warmongers, to be warlike. So aliens came down and genetically modified you to be more aggressive. And no. That comes out of living in a cold climate. Because when you exist in a cold climate, the frontal lobe, that which is the will or circumspection, symbolized by Heru, starts to take a back seat to the primitive emotions, because individualism starts to kick in. What do I mean by that? When there is a scarcity of food to the point of starvation and a life or death situation, the brain starts to make new synaptic connections, starts to change. Neuroplasticity, it adapts. So what does it do? It starts to deprioritize morality. Because you cannot be in a scarce environment where there's food and resources and you have found some meat. You can't share it with anybody because the nature of survival says me first. So morality gets unplugged. And then the individual, for survival purposes, takes over. You become more animalistic, which is what the Egyptians coined as the Sahu spirit. So you don't develop the morality aspect, and morality comes out the right brain, and the right brain is holistic in thinking, which is why Africans developed the first communities, because community is a holistic brain function. So in Europe, where it was cold and you were going through these ice ages and food was scarce, there was no idea of sharing. It was only, I have to survive. And this was not a choice. This was an instinctive knee-jerk reaction because of a lack of nutrients, a lack of food. And there are studies that they have done where they have found people who were shipwrecked and they got into boats and they tried to sail across the ocean to find land. And while they were there in the boat, starving, they noticed that these individuals, the psyche started to change. And they become more animalistic and aggressive in their natures. So with that said, what I'm telling you is this, that when you want to explore things, you've got to first look inward. And because these individuals who call themselves scholars or conspiracy theorists, because they are so trapped in the left brain thinking, they can't think properly. So to them, the Egyptians had help from aliens to build a society. To them, the reason why there is racism, colonialization, and the genocide of people is caused by aliens reconstructing the DNA. No. It's because when you go and just focus on left brain thinking, then you circumvent morality. So you become devious, you become cunning in what you do, and you don't think about the collective good. Okay? So let's start taking a look at things and say, you know what? Maybe we're off track with some of this stuff that we're theorizing. Maybe we've gone in the wrong direction. Maybe we've become racist in our theories. And then when they talk about, oh, well, these abductions and these UFOs, the aliens were blonde hair, blue eyed. Where are you getting this from? Where are you getting this nutty stuff from? And it's this psychosis that has gone crazy on this planet. And years ago, when I was involved in the Kemetic movement, because there was a big movement back then of studying Egypt and all of this new information that was coming out, I saw very early on that things were going in the wrong direction, because I saw the masses of people who were delving into this knowledge were getting high off the intellectual masturbation. They were being wooed by individuals who can come along and talk about the different dynasties and Akhenaten and the different Kemetic names. And I was like, well, this is not going to save anybody in just understanding these dates and names and situations and what war, who waged war, the Hyksos, and all of this stuff. I said, because if you don't instill culture within people, they're still going to be corrupt. I said, the main thing that you have to take away from the Kemetic knowledge is the living and practice of Ma'at. But still, they couldn't get that right, so they took it as memorizing some principles and think you could live according to those principles. No, it doesn't work that way, because you're still operating according to the left brain. The left brain needs a paradigm. It needs a precedent. So the left brain says, I need commandments. I need 10 commandments, or I need 42 commandments. And based on that, then I could follow those commandments and apply those and live. That's why the left brain by itself is so screwed up. Whereas the right brain comes along, and the right brain is more fluid and dynamic, and it says wisdom can be intuited from within. I don't need a book, because I know I am divine in nature, and I know that I can intuit the right information at the right time that's appropriate for the right situation. This is how you have information stored in the Akashic records. But then we sit there and we think that because these Hotepers come out and they read a bunch of books and come and go, Hotep, brother, and then regurgitate this information, that they've acquired some true spiritual wisdom. They've acquired nothing. They're stupid. They're stupid. Because if you're not performing a ritual, invoking spirits, traveling to the ether and communicating with interdimensional beings, speaking to the ancestors, then you're doing nothing. If you're not working with trance induction to where you can snap your finger and place yourself into an alternate state of consciousness, into trance, to remove negative emotions from your spirit, if you're not working on that, you're doing nothing. And most of the people in the Hotep community, if you see them, they're fighting each other. They're cursing. They're talking about rubbing each other out, shooting each other down. How in the hell are you calling yourself a Kemetian or at peace when you're doing this and when you're talking about this? And then they're going and they're acquiring these names: Imhotep, Ma'at, Tahuti. Who said you can call yourself these names? Did you do an oracle reading? And the oracle said, this will be your name? Did you go through an initiation process to say this can be your name? No, you did not. Who said that that name is in alignment with your energy and your destiny? So that when you recite the name, the vibration of the name will help you to fulfill your destiny or your soul contract. No, you just picked the name because it sounded cool. And this is your problem. You're supposed to go through an initiation and a naming ceremony where a priest or priestesses will either go into trance and communicate with the ancestors what your name should be, or consult an oracle about what your name should be. You should be running around just calling yourself a name arbitrarily. I would love to call myself Kasank, ruler of all in the fourth dimensional realm, but that's not my destiny. That's not what the oracle said my name should be. Oh, actually, I would like to call myself Kasank Mac Daddy, but that didn't work. So, well, anyway, you get the point of what I'm saying. Our ancestors worked through cosmology, cosmologics, meaning that depending on the energy that you give off in this lifetime determines your destiny. of where you need to go in life. And that when I communicate with you, especially when I say your name, that vibration of your name should invoke the energy, because that name is a mantra, a cow, should invoke the energy within you to help you fulfill your destiny. Like my name means something. It's not something I picked out of thin air. And believe me, Q as the first name, as the first letter in the name, I had a hard time with that. Q, wow, who uses that letter, Q? Well, there's Q on Star Trek, and he's a cool character, but you know. So anyway, let me put on my Trick Daddy glasses, all right? I always look cool when I put these on. Okay, all right. Anyway, so Heru Nefer, Happy Seeker, Heru Nefer, Suan, Sun-Kissed, Het-Heru, Deborah, always good to see you, Het-Heru. Ebony, what's up? All right, so Atavia, Het-Heru, Mike, Heru Nefer. All right, so the magicians are here. I'm glad to see you all have come in, and we're ready to work some magic. Okay. Oh, Hogan, I can't even pronounce your name, brother, but it's all right. Better late than never. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to put the, to all my magicians in the chat room, I'm going to put the donate link here, and I would appreciate donations. You know, give to the Church of Ma'at. No, give so I can do some more programs and come out with some more ebooks. The Osiris report has done really well, and it's free. And I want to come out with another report. So I do that through the donations that everyone gives. So I appreciate that. So anyway, what I want to say to you is there's a lot of misinformation on the internet. You know, and you have these agents, and yes, they're working through the government that will come out there and spread disinformation, you know, and part of some of them are your flat earthers, and, you know, that come and just make things more confused and convoluted and misdirect the direction you should be going in. You know, I remember there was one author in particular that I read his book on being abducted by aliens, and I've talked about him before, and his book was phenomenal. I loved his book. Great reading, great writing, but the guy is he can't stop lying. He's a compulsive liar, and he's making these rounds and getting these lectures and going into the MUFON, the UFO community, talking about all these abductions that he's had and all of these things with the government. He's just a liar. And the reason you know he's a liar, because when he writes these stories, they're very racist in nature. You can tell he's racist. You don't need a PhD to figure that out. So we've got to purge. We need a great purge in the conspiracy theory arena. And another part of these conspiracy theorists is they think that just by changing political affiliations or by changing the heads of government, that you can actually change the world or prevent the coming of the New World Order. I don't care who's president. The president is only a figurehead. The senators are only figureheads. You remove them and put somebody else in place, the machine still functions, because there is a hidden hand behind the scenes that is moving everything in a certain direction. And all of these people in government are not in control, but they give the illusion of control. And they fool you. And the reality is you don't need government. You're a divine being. You're God man, God woman. What do you need government for? You don't need it. But it's there to make sure that you do not come into a knowledge of self. Because if you do, the ruling elite knows they're done. It's over for them. The fat lady's going to sing. Hey, Mike Het-Heru, yeah, David Wilcox is loony. And his information is so like nothing but propaganda, lies, bad research too. I think that some of the things he was sincere, but he's just you know, he's not a good researcher. He doesn't know what he's doing, you know. And some of these people come along and talk about how Akhenaten was actually an alien because he had an elongated head. Not realizing that if you go deep into Central Africa and do the research, there's whole tribes that have that long, elongated head. So the whole African tribe are aliens too, right? No, and it gets ridiculous at the lack of research and the racism. Just come out and say the truth, conspiracy theorists. Come out and say the truth. But they're willing to admit, now check this out, they're willing to admit that the global elite, the Illuminati so-called, wants to depopulate the planet to about only 500, 500 million? And they want you to get up in arms about this plan to depopulate the planet, but yet they're refusing to look at the fact that, wait a minute, they've already done this. Let's take the numbers. Native Americans, once 75 million strong here in North America. How many Native Americans are left? Oh, about 3 million. They're almost extinct as a race, as a population. Well, let's look at the slave trade. 100 million men, women, and children basically killed. The rest that survived put into slavery. So let's look at the Holocaust. How many was it? 3 million Jews? You're talking about, well, they're going to depopulate that. They're already doing it. They're already on their way to doing it. It's happened in history already. The Congo. King Leopold, the Congo people. What did he do to them? Tried to mass exterminate them. Those that weren't exterminated were used as his personal pleasure, meaning he tortured them. He cut their hands off, cut their genitalia off. So what I'm saying to you is, if you're so concerned about the Illuminati putting to effect this plan of depopulating the earth, why didn't you look back in history and see all these instances of the Australian Aborigines up in Brazil, how masses of people were basically taking off the planet? Let's do some more numbers. Let's look here again in North America. Margaret Sanger, who had ties to the Nazi movement, who was into eugenics, who started Planned Parenthood and put that in poor communities because she wanted to exterminate African American babies. And to a large degree, she was successful at it, because today we know, since 1973, Black babies in the United States, unborn children, have been aborted. How many? Approximately 22 million. 22 million. That's a conservative number, because we can't get the numbers from California and 2 other states. 22 million abortions since 1973 of Black children, Black babies, under Margaret Sanger and her Planned Parenthood. And she was into eugenics. The Nazi movement took its cue from the United States, who started the program. Individuals like her. Then along came Gloria Steinem, who wanted to put in place feminism, and her first experiment was doing it in where? Minority communities. Her first thing during the civil rights movement, they had to stop the civil rights movement. And what better way to do that than to separate Black men and Black women by interjecting feminism and trying to break up the nuclear family. And they were successful at it. And because minority communities are the canary in the coal mine, they're now doing it with white communities. They're targeting white communities to destroy the nuclear family. This is why every TV program in the movies, you always see that the white male is portrayed as an idiot. And white females are told that, oh, you're oppressed. White males are your enemy. They are sexual aggressors. There's toxic masculinity. All of this nonsense, Sebek stuff out the left brain. Using these names and terms and definitions to get you rallied up. And you start to think, I am a victim. Victim mentality. Yes, I am a victim. White male, I'm not paid as much as white males. Why should I have to follow the man? Why don't he follow me? And then you cause this disruption and you create these factions that define themselves based on erroneous terms and definitions. I am a starch feminist. I am part of the male rights movement. This is a sickness. This is psychosis. But the conspiracy theory, these guys don't want to admit where it comes from. And those psychologists who have the degrees, there are a bunch of liars. And those that aren't liars, who know the truth, are afraid to stand up because they'll be ridiculed or assassinated. Because they know the origin of where all this is coming out of, which is the left brain. They know it. Which is why we have got to go back to the moon cult. The moon is a symbolization of the right brain, subconscious mind, the worship of the female principle to balance out the male principle, the left brain. We got to go back to that. Meaning, in short, we've got to go back to implementing a culture. A culture is the cohesiveness of the people. A culture puts in roles and definitive positions, cosmologics, an order of things. And Ma'at is cosmologics. Ma'at is just not creating some principles and living by it. No, Ma'at looks at cosmologics, which are interdependent interrelationships between things, an ecosystem that balances everything and has a place for everything. And you live according to your role within the place, within the whole. So let's keep this in perspective. So living a spiritual life from the Hotep community is not about being able to regurgitate information and going, Hotep, brother, Hotep, Hotep. No. It is about, number one, following the word of God, which is meaning that you live your life according to an oracle system. The oracles tell you this is right, this is wrong. It also comes about through common sense and self-reflection. If you're cursing and you're so-called beefing with brothers, then you're not spiritual. And you should no way be talking about being spiritual or counseling people. Talk about, oh, this guy come to this town, he better not show up, or you ain't nothing without me, or I gave you time, and the Hotep, I'm like, what? How are you beefing and calling yourself spiritual? None of them live according to an oracle system, nor do they have personal counselors that they can go to do divination. But they can talk all deep about astrology and the ancient people and the different zodiac signs and everything. They can talk deep about that, but their lives are a wreck. Living foul. So this is why if you choose to live a spiritual life, a truly spiritual life, where you're striving to ascend to fifth dimension, then you're going to have to be a recluse. You're going to have to stay away from some of these people because I'm sorry, to be honest, they're batshit crazy. They are. And people are like, well, what do you think of Kanye West? I said, listen, I don't deal in crazy. I just take a step back. When people ask me questions like that, I say, when you choose to live a spiritual path, what you got to understand is you've got to be stoic. You can't be emotional about what people say or what people do. And you also have to learn to be non-judgmental, okay? You have to learn to be the observer. You go through this life and you're just observing and you're taking it all in. And the one thing you don't want to do is associate with nutcases because they're going to bring their negative karma to you and you're going to find yourself in trouble. Because energy vibrations rub off on people. You don't want to attract that stuff. So if you have people in your life that are nuts, you got to just like, hey, you know what? I love you, but I got to stay away. I got to keep my distance because you got some issues. And if you need some help, I'll be glad to bring you some information. And when I say bring you information, I mean teach them how to go into a trance state to deal with their conditionings or programming. I don't mean talk about, oh, well, you know, the only way to salvation is due to Muhammad. You have to be Islamic. You have to be Islam, you know, to be free. You know, I'm not talking about that nonsense. I'm talking about the reliance upon self, upon utilizing your own power within to free you. And it doesn't mean that you have to subscribe to any religion, to any savior, but yourself. And in the I-Ching, the Book of Changes, the 40th hexagram talks about you being your own savior. That the power is within you to get yourself out of the situations that you find yourself in. So you must rely upon that. And as sure as anything in life, as sure as taxes and death, that is the only thing that you can rely on is you. Because you can't take your mate with you when you die. You can't take your money with you. You can't take your kids with you. You can't take your good looks with you too. You know, I tried, you know. But you can put it in a box and take it. I would have tried that in my past lifetime. I was good looking back then too, by the way. But anyway. That's another story. Okay. So what I'm saying to you is that these individuals who are part of the conspiracy theorists and Hotep community have lots and lots of followers. And that's part of their soul contract, is to get misled and follow these people. But listen, if we can help it, let's not follow these people. And it's not hard to see them coming. It's not hard to understand that some people are just not right in the head. You know? I don't understand why people couldn't see Jim Jones. I'm like, dude, man, the Kool-Aid, really? You think this guy is, you know? But that's part of the soul group. You know, you're reincarnated with a group of people, sometimes, not all the time, and then their destinies are intertwined. This is why you have a lot of Christian churches that, even though logically the Bible makes no darn sense, that's part of the agreement they made with Tahuti, is to be within that group and to follow that leader, and sometimes to death, you know. And in that death, if he's a crazy cult leader, that could shed some light and help them to understand where they went wrong, so their next life, they don't repeat the same thing. Because each life is about learning and growing to become Osir. And if you don't learn the lesson that you were supposed to learn in this lifetime, you have to come back and do it all again. You said, I don't think Kanye is crazy. You just have to know what he is talking about for it to make sense. No, you don't know what he has to talk about to make sense. You know crazy by doing an oracle reading, divination. Okay, let's pay attention to what I'm saying now. You or I are not the judge. We go to an oracle and ask the oracle, is this person crazy? That's what is the determination of how we have to look at that person. Now, there's some jewels that he dropped. He did drop some nuggets, but overall, he is not mentally balanced. He's not. How do you know that? You go and do a reading. So I think you should get the I-Ching, or you get the Meduna Tear and start learning how to do a reading. This is why in ancient Kemet, we had the most moral leaders of any civilization. Because what determined you going to the position of leader, a pharaoh, a king, was that the oracles had to sanction it. The oracles had to say, you should be high priestess. You should be king. You should be pharaoh. You should go to war. We did not live our lives by left brain. Well, I think. You know, we didn't live our lives by that, because the left brain is the lower mind. It's limited in perspective. It cannot see the totality of things. Whereas the higher mind, the right brain, sees the whole and sees within the hearts of men and women. This is why when you go to judgment, Who is at the judgment scene? Tahuti, the oracle. This is why we don't judge. We go to the oracle reading. And if you get to a level of where you become a sage, then you can go into trance state and divine and be a diviner on your own and come out and then have the right wisdom and knowledge. But in order to do that, you have to subdue the animal spirit, the Sahu. And this was the whole story of Asar and Aset. When Heru battled Set, he was just battling his own animal nature to subdue it. And then when he subdued the animal nature, the only way to do that is he had to go to who? To Hute, wisdom, knowledge, the oracle system. So let us stop talking about I think, my thoughts, because your thoughts get you in trouble. Your thoughts is what created sexism. Your thoughts is what created racism. Your thoughts is what's creating pollution on this planet. Your thoughts is what's creating mass extermination. So stop thinking. And I mean that literally. Stop thinking. The only way to intuit wisdom and knowledge of the universe and the Akashic records and of the emerald tablets of Tahuti, of thought, is to still the mind of thoughts, clear the mind. And then when there are no thoughts, then you connect with source energy. So I don't want to hear anybody in the chat talking about, well, I think he is this, or I think he is that, because you don't know. I think is a product of left brain thinking. All right, so let's get that straight. And if you're unwilling to go to the oracles and you're going to keep saying, I think, then you know what you're going to be? You're going to be Sahu. You're going to just be like everyone else, and you're going to claim you know truth when you don't know jack. Because when people come to me with a relationship reading, right? And they say, and this happens all the time, should I marry this person? I say, well, you know what? I can't really tell you this person will cheat on you in 5 to 10 years. I can't tell you that this relationship will stay solid in 5 to 10 years, but the oracle can. The oracle has the vision to see down the road from 5 to 10 years. So we're going to do an oracle reading, and we're going to see if you should marry this person. And time again, the oracle says, nope, don't marry this person. But they've gone off and they get married, and then the person comes back to me 3 years later, you know, she cheated on me. I said, well, what did the oracle tell you? Oracle told you not to marry her, but your emotions got into it, right? Did you practice the breathing? Did you still your mind? Did you meditate consistently to subdue the emotional aspect? No, you didn't. You just went off and followed your emotions and what Western society tells you, just because you feel a tingling inside of you and the attraction that you should just go by that emotion. So you went by that emotion. You paid, what, 30, 40,000 for the wedding. And 3 years later, she cheats on you multiple times when you were married, and you didn't realize that, did you? But the oracle told you from the get-go not to marry the person because you used your mind. You used what you thought. You used what you saw before you, not knowing that the higher mind could see down the road, and you didn't want to listen. So now she's divorcing you and taking half. All right? So you guys want to do that? You guys want to watch television and have the mass media manipulate you? It's all a manipulation game. You can't win. What you see on there is an illusion. You're never going to figure out what the truth is. It's all their propaganda to get an emotional reaction from you. So anyway, the main thing that we have to be is stoic. We have to practice Mineb. We have to center ourselves and understand that the only way that we can live a spiritual life is by, one, going to the oracles, and then by 2, learning to still the heart, stop being so emotional, and stop following the emotions, because emotions are not the determinant of truth. The emotions can be just as an illusion as the Maya that you see before you. And on the same token, when you flip the script, you must also understand that you have the ability within you to express joy, to express pleasure whenever you want. It is not limited by external circumstances. So you don't need something that you want to erroneously define brings you joy, because joy can be expressed within you. You don't need a physical object or a person to bring you joy. You can be joyful and content in any situation if you learn how to manipulate your emotions. This is why Het-Heru, Hathor, says joy isn't a journey and not the destination. You go through life expressing joy just for the sake of being joyful. This is why many spiritual cultures, couples got together that weren't in so-called love, but they learned to express joy by living truth. And because the oracle said they should be together, they bonded and became man and wife, or man and woman. What's that new term? Politically correct. So they became, they pair bonded, became a couple. And it could have been based on a past life that they were a couple. All right. So they were just following and just picking up where they left off from the past life. Okay. So with that said, I just want to bring this to a close. I hope this has made some sense. And I hope I've kind of like given you guys a guidepost as to how to proceed and understand the path that you should be on. And we really got to just like step back and take a look at everything that's going on out there and the people that are trying to mislead us and take us in the wrong direction. And the majority of you individuals that are here and in the chat room are only here because some way, shape, or form, the ancestors and your spirit has guided you to a higher truth, which is good. And I'm glad to see that you're here because it shows that you are seeking a higher truth and you're not trapped in fourth dimensional thinking. So that is wonderful. And you should give yourself much praise for that, you know, and pour libation to your ancestors for guiding you here. So, any final questions? I see you guys had like an interesting discussion in the chat room. Very good. All right. So anyway, I want to thank all of the Magi's for attending. And again, hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel as your first time here so that you can be notified when I go live on my next broadcast. And until the next broadcast, this is Gustave Ma Het-Heru, son of Ma'at, and Amun Ra.